This podcast sheds light on the incredible stories of those who served and are now navigating civilian life. Join me as we explore the challenges, triumphs, and unique perspectives of transitioning veterans. From career shifts to mental health, we cover everything. Subscribe now and amplify the voices of our heroes. Amplify Veterans, where every story matters. So this is another episode of Amplify Veterans. Today's guest is Sammy Prato. Sammy is a Marine Corps veteran, and he spent 4 years, finished up his time in the Marine Corps as a corporal, and he's here today to talk about what came next. So, Sammy, I'm going to let you introduce yourself, but also, as you do that, if you could talk a little bit about why you joined the Marine Corps in the first place.
Of course. Hi. Well, I just want to say thank you very much for having me. It's a pleasure to be on the podcast. So thank you very much, Nick.
Yeah, thanks for coming.
No problem. So, Sammy Prato, Marine Corps veteran, I guess we'll highlight that considering this is going to be a more veteran podcast. So obviously, Marine Corps veteran, 4 years, served in the Marine Corps as 0311, which is an infantry rifleman, served a couple different billets, saw gunner and a squad leader in the Marine Corps. That's pretty much my Marine Corps career summed up, very broadly, but I'm happy to be here. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, for sure, man. That's awesome. And yeah, so what was the reason that you decided to join?
So probably like most people, 9/11 era, I was this little kid kind of I remember 9/11 thinking, holy cow, how did this happen? And then just kind of growing up and, seeing the kind of war progress. And I had really always wanted to be in the military. It was no shock to my parents when I told them I was going to go in. I actually went in at 17. They signed paperwork for me, or with me, I should say, and, graduated high school. And 3 weeks later, I was gone. So it just is something I always wanted to do, something always really intriguing to me. And I was one of those idiots that tested pretty well, could have done probably a good amount of things in the military. And I was like, hey, I'm going to be infantry or I'm not leaving my house. And I got it. So
awesome. See, I mean, you got exactly what you wanted.
Yeah, the rest was history, of course. Yeah, I got exactly what I wanted. I don't know if it was good or bad, but hey, it's brought me to where I am today, so I won't complain.
That's awesome. I almost became a Marine. Actually, I was very close to becoming a Marine, and I didn't end up making it. I had a medical record situation that I had to get cleared. I had to get it set through waivers, and Marine Corps doctors couldn't get it cleared. So a couple years later, finally got my opportunity with the Navy, which I didn't think I was going to be able to join at all. But somehow, some way, a miracle came from the medical gods, and they got me in. So, but I would have been a grunt too, probably, if I would have gone in. So, but hats off to you, man. So, how was the service? Tell me some highlights about your time as a Marine.
It was good. Overall, it kind of depends where I was at in my career. Obviously, 4 years is it's a snapshot of time, but as you're going through 4 years, it almost seems like a lifetime. And especially, in hindsight, looking back in the military career, it really was a lifetime. Going through the different progression. Start early. I thought boot camp was actually super easy. It sucks. Don't get me wrong. You put your head down, you shut up, you kind of learn the routine. And you can go through it, So I thought boot camp was easy. After boot camp was School of Infantry for me. Same thing, kind of sucked. You're like, oh, I'm a Marine, but you're not. You suck. You don't know anything.
Where's School of Infantry? Is that Camp Geiger?
That was Camp Pendleton.
Pendleton.
And yeah, it was a Camp.
Oh yeah,
Pendleton,
you were West Coast, right?
I was West Coast, yeah. So it was a Camp Pendleton for me.
What is Camp Geiger? Is Geiger where you go if you're on the East Coast?
I don't know what Geiger is. East Coast, at least boot camp is, what is it? Parris Island. But that's all, what is it? North Carolina, South Carolina, one of the Carolinas, I believe. And then same thing, Lejeune is North Carolina. I know that for sure. I've been there.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, I'm not sure. I didn't do not much East Coast stuff. I was West Coast and then Hawaii. So I was pretty much complete opposite end. As bad as that sounds, I don't really know.
Well, Hawaii was awesome. I remember hanging out in your stomping grounds out there in Kaneohe Bay, and it was always interesting because I'd go through the Air Force Base at Hickam and Pearl Harbor, and those bases were always so nice and beautiful. There was really nice landscaping, and then I'd go through Cape Bay, and
You're
I
like,
just see square buildings and like a lot of brown and earth tone color buildings, and there was like no landscaping. It was just, I mean, maybe I just didn't see the pretty parts, but yeah, tell me
no.
about the base. Tell me about the experience out there.
The base, like you said, I mean, it was beautiful. It's Hawaii, right? But yeah, 100%. You go to another area of Hawaii, and it's so much luxurious. So much more beautiful. And you get to K Bay, and it's just a bunch of Marines. So we're dumb. It's not that great. The base itself, I loved. Of course, it was Hawaii, but even then, it's crazy to say, but there were different portions of my career where I mean, I hated Hawaii at first. When I got there, kind of had that island fever. Didn't
Mm,
really like being there. And then kind of as time progressed, I liked it more. I think I more so associated my experience of the Marine Corps with Hawaii, which kind of dulled it down, we'll say, as a new Marine. Just dropped off to a fresh infantry battalion. Back when I was in, I'm going to put this as dully as I can. There was extra training for new guys, we'll say, and that probably is why my life sucked. We can get
yeah.
into that whole extra training thing. To be honest with you, I thought there was a tremendous amount of value in it. As bad as it sounds, it was miserable at times, but I think some of that stuff is actually necessary. But
When we talk about extra training, we talking about hazing. Is that what you're talking about?
well, you could use that word. There was lightly put, yes. We'll say yes. Most definitely, it was getting your door kicked in at 8 o'clock at night, and that going on until 3 o'clock in the morning and whatnot. And there was value in it, as bad as it sounds. You know, my first day getting dropped as a boot, having guys kicked on the door saying, what's a 9 line, and you're like, I don't know, and they're like, oh, I guess I don't have a rank, so you could be a lance corporal dressing someone else as a lance corporal. It's a completely different beast than even the other half of the Marine Corps. Essentially, it's crazy. If you tell this to like someone that probably was in infantry, they'd be like, "What do you mean? You as a lance corporal address someone as a lance corporal?" You're like, "Well, they were a senior lance corporal," and they're like, "What does that mean?" They're like, "Well, they deployed, so therefore he's more senior than me." Although you're the same rank. Welcome to
Yeah.
infantry. Yeah,
Yeah, I mean, you're combat trained versus not. You've actually seen some action versus you haven't. There's certainly there's certainly a line there, I would say. And yeah, hazing isn't always bad. I
I
think
agree.
that it's a very broad definition, and I think that you earn your spot, you earn your keep, and eventually people respect you for it. You don't come into a new group with this ego and expect people to like you. You've got to show them some humility, and I think that's what hazing does. I think it just helps you find that because not everybody's born humble, so you got to break down a little bit. So, and if the more humble you are, the less hazing you go through. I think typically.
Absolutely. No, I agree. I think there was actually value in it, as bad as it sounds. There was like a big debacle within my unit. They ended up moving guys around and doing this crazy stuff. It became a thing. It was potentially excessive at times, but I'm a firm believer that there was a ton of value in it. And I think completely getting rid of, extra training, we'll call it for all intents and purposes, as
Sure.
a whole, at least for combat arms, is probably going to be, extremely, I would really think it would probably be a more negative side effect to the military than it would be a positive. There's like I said, there's value in it. There's going in, there's the humility, because you come out the school of infantry thinking, oh, this is the greatest, I know everything, and you knew nothing. Practicality wise, you knew nothing. You knew how to operate weapon systems, but after that, you hardly knew that, and it just there was a ton of things to learn afterwards, and that's kind of where the whole pain retain things, and you went through some
Right.
pain, and you learned real quick.
Yeah. Well, and if you are not, I guess the Marine Corps is not for the weary. So if you go to the Marine Corps, you got to expect to get razzed up a little bit. That's just the way it's going to go. So we'll put a poll up on this LinkedIn when I post this. Is hazing good or bad? Yes or no?
I
this
like
will
it.
be a
I mean,
good this would be a good controversial conversation to have. There's definitely going to be the don't do this versus this is okay. But as long as you're not hurting anybody or pushing them over the edge, I think that's what it's all about. So
I agree. Within reason, right?
yeah,
Within
everything's within reason, and again, I think it's all about. I think the underlying the meaning behind it is to build some cohesion and bring you in. So anyway, let's move on from that piece of it, and we'll go into what made you get out of the Marine Corps. I think you started to talk about Hawaii. Was that a big part of it, or what was going on when you got out?
getting out. I think I was just kind of done. We were already, this is back in 2013, and to what I believe, the war was wrapping up. Little did I know it'd be going on a little bit longer, of course. But to me, I was like, oh, we're wrapping up. We'll be done here. I had one real deployment to Afghanistan, and then after that, we did the UDP, and I was like, well, I don't want to play this peacetime Marine Corps game. So I felt like getting out was the best thing for me. I had a significant other at the time who I thought I was coming out, getting out, going home to kind of thing. It's just my family. So it was a multitude of reasons, but I think really the primary reason was like, oh, like this appears to be the peacetime Marine Corps, and I didn't really want to be part of it. And I just was ready to go home. I thought 4 years was enough. It's kind of a saying that third Marines ruins good Marines. I had plenty of staff NCOs and officers try to convince me to stay in. Hey, you're a fantastic Marine. Like, trust me, third Marines isn't the Marine Corps. You can try to go somewhere else and potentially have a way better experience. And I was kind of like, hey, I don't want to take that risk. This is kind of what I experienced for the first, my first time around. And I wasn't really sure if I wanted to dedicate 4 more years. So I got out.
Got it. And then what was the prep like getting out? What types of things did you work on to help that transition go more easily for you? Or what was that whole transition experience like from moment you decided to get out to now you're out?
So I think luckily I did prepare a little bit, we'll say. I at least had a general idea what I wanted to do. I had researched positions and I researched jobs when I got out. I researched schooling. I researched like the GI Bill and stuff like that. So I thought I actually did a pretty good job to prepare myself to get out. I'd already known what school I wanted to go to. I already knew what I wanted to study. I already knew kind of how to, start the process of the GI Bill. I consider myself lucky. I mean, really, probably as hardworking, if anything. I just didn't want to get out and be caught my pants down. I wanted to get out and make sure I was as prepared as I could be. With that being said, I'm sure I could have done far more, but it did work out. I did a good amount of preparing. It's in my personal opinion that the military does not prepare you very well to get out. How long is the onboarding process between boot camps and whatever other schooling for your jobs and stuff? And then when you're getting out, you go through a 1 week long, what's it called, TAPS or whatever, 1 week
Yeah.
long class where they hardly tell you anything, and they're like, later, you know, go get,
Yeah.
go have the S shop sign all your paperwork or whatever, go get all your signatures and goodbye. Here's your DD 214. So I kind of knew that's what it was like just from talking to people that had gotten out before me. So I wanted to make sure I was as prepared as possible. So luckily, I had narrowed it down to I wanted to be a police officer, a firefighter, and I was leaning far more towards firefighter. And the irony of getting out, I ended up working as a part-time cop as well. We could talk about it if they wanted to, but
Yeah, we're
I
gonna
did.
go there.
I did do a little bit of, a non-sworn position, of course, non-sworn part-time police officer, but in conjunction with going to school to be a firefighter, because I ultimately did want to be a firefighter. So I'm pretty happy. What I had my eyes set on, I followed through and I've continued and I've made it work.
That's key. And yeah, the transition process isn't great in the military. It's never going to be perfect.
No.
That's why we have to, every veteran that's going through that process now, everybody in the military that's thinking about getting out, you have to do the work on your own. Use the TAP process as like maybe you have a few extra questions that you're trying to get through or figure out. And it's just a good week or two to take a pause and a mental break from the grind in the military. But you have to do the prep work. to transition. The TAP program's not going to do it for you. So don't wait for the TAP program to help you do it. So uh, good on you for figuring out what school you were going to go to. So you went to a firefighter school or you went to a law enforcement school? What came first?
So, if we can go back, I just want to hit one more thing with the tap
Sure.
thing.
Yeah, let's go there.
Like you said, do your own homework. I think that's huge, and I love that we're even talking about that, just because I think a lot of guys like to blame stuff on the military and kind of point fingers in every direction but themselves. But like, I actually think the VA is not, as we'll say, however you feel about them, good, bad, impartial, whatever it is. I think the VA offers a lot of help and a lot of services, and I think they're
Certainly.
there for the majority of things. They're not perfect by any means, but any bit of help that you would like and or need, I do think the VA at the end of the day would be there for you, regardless of using the multitude of perks that they offer for us veterans. Like you said, you got to do the work yourself. So if you want help, reach out for help. It will be there, whether it's the VA, even a friend's family, etc., someone else that's gone through the process, whatever it is. I think there's help across the board, and I personally just know people who have kind of blamed things on like the military systems and everything else. But like at the end of the day, like, look, brother, this is your life.
That's
If
it.
you're not grabbing it and figuring out what you need to do, that's the you problem. You're not in the military anymore, and like this transition is on you. So I hate to not answer that first question, but I wanted just to kind of go back
No,
because I think it's huge. I know a lot of people that like to blame everything but themselves, but like, look in the mirror, brother. Like, it's your life. The military did what they could for you, and it could definitely improve. But at the end of the day, there is help, and we need to actually acknowledge that.
we're going to stay there for just a moment longer. I agree with you. I think the military's job is to protect the country. And so if you're getting out, military, they don't really care about you at that point. Now, they're going to help, but they got to keep protecting the country. They need to worry more about the people that are staying in. So it is definitely on us to make sure. And when you get out, you start using the VA for services. I've noticed that there's a lot of moments when I have an appointment that mysteriously gets canceled, or I have a hard time getting a hold of a provider within the VA, and I got to call a few times. You don't. It's not like you're calling a major medical system or major hospital, and you're like, "Hey, I need to get an appointment to see my doctor." They're better at following up. They're better at getting you in. They know how to put you through the system. The VA is strapped. The VA has so many patients that they're trying to help, and you have to follow up. You have to be your own advocate, and you might have to call a few times just to finally get somebody to help you. But you can't give up. It's it's not going to cost you anything. So just keep calling or talk to somebody like us, and we'll do what we can to help sound the board as well, so that you can get the appointment you need. But don't give up on it. So anyway, we're gonna go back to that education question. So you decided to go into firefighting school, or was it also law enforcement school? How does that work?
So, I decided to go to school to be a firefighter. So really, just community college. There aren't really major universities that offer it. So I had a community college really close to my house where I was, where I grew up. We'll say I went back to my parents. Typical. Got out, went lived in my parents' basements for a few years, and while I was going to school, I lived with them, which is great. Thank God for my parents, they're the nicest people in the world. How they raised an
Certainly.
idiot like me, who knows? But God bless their hearts. But yeah, I went to a community college to study what's called fire science, which is for firefighting, and eventually got my associate's degree in fire science, which is for being a firefighter. And along the way, I
Beautiful.
actually went to a pretty good school, Harper Community College in Palatine, Illinois, and I actually went through a fire academy through them. So I technically, when I got out, I had my firefighter two, it's called. So I had my certificates to be a firefighter, and that just kind of rolled into paramedic school. Jumped in paramedic school, and while I was in paramedic school, and all that throughout all this process, I was testing to be a firefighter, and then I finally got my call.
Got it. And so then you mentioned part-time police officer as well.
Oh yeah, of course, forgot. And then in conjunction with all this, This is probably not probably. This was definitely my first job. Actually, when I got out, I was probably doing this within 3 or 4 months of getting out of the Marine Corps itself. I was called an auxiliary police officer. It's a part-time non-sword police officer, essentially. Primarily, my duties were like running lockup and stuff like that, non-emergency calls, parking tickets, things like that. I didn't love it. I didn't love it. It said police on the side of my uniform and stuff on the side of the Explorer I was in. I very quickly realized that this is not what I wanted to do. Writing tickets and stuff. Nothing against law enforcement. God bless your hearts, and I support you.
Certainly.
I would rather be a firefighter, my personal opinion. So I definitely confirmed that the fire service is the way I wanted to go. But I actually worked those two jobs in conjunction for years until I finally left being a police officer.
Yeah, well, you got the taste of it. You figured it out, and there's so much overlap between first responders of different types with firefighting and law enforcement, and like you said, emergency services. So you've and you're all part of the same community in a way, helping each other. So, but that's awesome. So, what do you like most about being a firefighter at this point?
I like the hours, as weird as it sounds. So we are 24 hours on, 48 hours off in my department. It does suck to be away for 24 hours. At this point in my life, I've got a wife, I've got a kid, so being gone for a full day, it's inconvenient, let's be honest.
Sure.
But on the flip side, to me, it's actually extremely convenient. I get out of work, I've got essentially 2 full days off. It's like a weekend every time I get off work. So I've got plenty of time. Doesn't feel like plenty of time, but in there, I have plenty of time to work my side job, spend time with my family, and just you know disconnect from work, which I actually love what I do. I do feel blessed that I truly go into work, and to me, it's just like I'm hanging out with the boys. I love my job. I like the department I work for. I can't complain. I really love what I do. With at least my first full time job. We'll say I've got many of them at this point, but it's a great job. I think the transition from the military to the fire service is pretty good. I will say this is my personal opinion. I would think the camaraderie in the I believe the camaraderie in the military was a little bit better, a little bit higher, but that's okay. Nothing's perfect in this world. And I do love the fire service. I work with a group of guys that I absolutely love, and they make just going to work, enjoyable every day. And we work so well together, such a cohesive unit. It's great. A little bit of time there, and I realized I'm like this. This is it. This is what I want to do.
It sounds like that's probably the closest you might be able to get to the Marine Corps or the military style camaraderie. Because once you get out, you don't have that. Like nobody's under that enlistment or that commission requirement anymore. You're a civilian now, so you can kind of come and go as you please, and that doesn't keep people as close together. So I think that's a big differentiating factor between military versus civilian camaraderie. So you mentioned a lot there, and
Yeah.
you mentioned the flexibility that those days off give you. So I know you've been working hard on your own business. Tell us about that.
Yeah. So I started up a home inspection business, at Ease Inspections, serving all the Chicagoland area, obviously. Yeah, a lot of work, like you said. Definitely more work than I would have initially anticipated. More money went into it than initially anticipated, but that's just because I take pride in what I do, and if I do something, I'm going to do it right. The best equipment involved, the best software involved, the best everything. So it's kind of become my baby. One of my babies. We'll say at this point. I absolutely love it. I think I truly can make an impact and help people both just with knowledge, resources, and just financially as well. Going through a home, especially if they're looking to buy this home, and I'm pointing out all these efficiencies that could be adding up to thousands of dollars. I could either make or break the deal at home, which that's not what I try to do, of course, but I'm in there just trying to advocate for my clients and point out things. Not trying to be petty, but I'm just trying to point out things that are deficient, and then at minimum they know. They can budget appropriately, plan appropriately, and or if they really wanted to, they could break the deal or break their contract at that house just due to unforeseen circumstances of the home itself. So it's something I really like doing. It's gone really well, especially this year. The housing market was really crazy. I personally stayed really busy the entire year. I'd have to look at my metrics, but I'm pretty sure I've done well over 160 inspections myself this year, which, to another home inspector, I'm sure it's nothing, but to me, with a full time job on the side and doing this full time, I believe there's plenty. I'm hopefully anticipating more next year, which is good because I hope to have someone underneath me next year as well. Because I have someone in class right now to join aboard Eddie's inspections. So
That's
plenty of
awesome.
expansion.
Yeah, there's not too many careers you can have, day jobs that you can have that give you that flexibility to be able to also start your own business. That's awesome that you have the ability to do that, and you're able to balance the fire department with your family and your business, because you have certain days where you can focus on each one. I think that's awesome. Obviously, family is every day, but
Absolutely.
that's great. What type of qualifications, or what's the process that you had to go through to become an inspector?
I thought the process is pretty easy. So I would like to start with, all people ask me like, "Oh, this looks easy." Like, thanks. But I'll
Yeah.
like, "This looks easy." Like, how do I do this? And I'm like, always my first question is like, "Have you ever done anything with tools? Do you know general or carpentry? Do you know, general electricity?" And if you don't, that's fine. You can learn. But like, like luckily for me, I bought a house that needed complete renovations, and I've gutted it pretty much myself at this point. I did have help in various areas, but I pretty much myself gutted it, and that led to doing side work and handyman work on the side. This was, of course, in conjunction with the fire service and the police, service at that time, and that's kind of what ultimately led me phasing out the police service because I was doing a little handyman stuff. And then I actually had known someone that had a home inspection business who was extremely successful with it, and I was like, let me give this a shot. So I took a course online to get my license. Took me probably 2 3 months, whatever it was. I was probably dragging my feet like an idiot because I am. And I took that course. I took the state exam and passed it the first time. And then from there, I was like, great, I'm done with school. And little did I know I was going to delve in everything else possible. So the schooling never ends, unfortunately. It's always nonstop certificates, different licensing, and the ability just to offer different services. Very naive of me to be like, oh, like, cool, you finished that one exam, you have your license, like, now you're done. I'm an idiot. Like, nonstop schooling, nonstop learning, which it's good. I love. I continue to try to learn more and advance my career and advance, all my knowledge, because at that point I'll be putting a better product forward and I'll have more knowledge for my clients. So it's
Yeah.
important to me, to continue learning. So long-winded. It's not a horrible process to get that license, and if someone wants to attempt it, I'm all for it, and I think you should, especially if it's something you could be interested in. It is a very difficult industry to get in. I'll tell you right now. I'm still trying to finagle my way in many areas, but this industry relies on the housing market, and it relies on realtors and how much they like you and or dislike you, and like you and your service, whatever it may be. And sometimes they might like you, but they're loyal to someone else, and that's fine. Different opportunities will present themselves, but it definitely takes a lot of time to fully develop yourself and develop relationships within this business. If you think you're going to make money in your first few years, good luck. You will, but I mean, not a ton.
Right. Like any other relationship based career or business, it takes time to really get those contacts and get develop that trust so that people will work with you. So, and you're very hands on. You've obviously you did the handyman, did some handyman work, and now you're using a lot of those skills plus what you've learned going through the inspector program. Now you're doing that, and you also mentioned at one point that this this is useful if you want to be a very hands-on real estate agent, to have this inspection knowledge in the background as well. Can you shed some light on that?
Yeah, actually, I once upon a time talked to someone. This is just online. It's gonna sound bad. I don't remember his name. I don't actually, but is a realtor. He also is a home inspector. He of course can't represent the client in both manners, but I kind of picked his brain one time, and yeah, it seemed like it's something that could have been advantageous because as a realtor, you more than likely don't know a ton of building stuff, which you might, just from walking through tons of houses and, being present on inspections. I'm not saying realtors are dumb by any means, but, it is the job of the home inspector to know, that stuff, right? But, knowing just a little bit, some basics and some foundations of, building standards and things along those lines, I think you could be an advocate for your client as a realtor because you could be walking through a home and you could see things during the showings and maybe even see signs that would lead you to believe, hey, maybe this isn't a good house for my clients. Maybe we don't even need to make the offer and hire an inspector and stuff like that. You could, in theory, be saving your clients money because you have just that baseline knowledge to where you can call things out and kind of advocate for your client, of course, that maybe you might not want to consider this house because XYZ.
Right. And in both cases, real estate agent sales, and it sounds like as an inspector, I think in both cases it can be very difficult to build the business at the beginning. So having a little bit of knowledge of both or being able to do both, if you've got the energy for it, could potentially be helpful, a helpful way to generate multiple revenue streams and build your business up altogether. So that's awesome, man. So with everything that's going on with the family, with firefighting, with inspecting, what are you? I guess what are you focused on today? Where are you trying to get to in your life at this point?
Man, focused on today, growth. I'm actually working on another set of licensing, and it'll probably ultimately end up in a separate business technically. So I will be bringing out a second Eddie's. We'll fill in the blank later. Hopefully, I pass the state test, which I have in a week from today.
Okay.
But there will be expansion of the Eddie's empire, we'll call it. So it's kind of like my immediate focus is studying up, passing this test, and then, of course, continuing growth for my family because without my wife and my kid, why would I do what I do? Why would I work sometimes 100 hours a week for nothing? So it's always continuing to honor and love and respect my family and do everything I can to provide for them. My family is expanding now. We have twins on the way. So wife's going to need a new car. Wife wants a new house. So pretty much the options are, bunker down and make some money to provide for my wife and get her what she needs and wants. So that's pretty much the short term and long term goal at the same time.
That's awesome. Are you allowed to dive into what that other license is, or is that not
Yeah, you can
something
if
that
you
you want?
want. I
Yeah,
mean,
yeah. What?
if I fail, it's me a problem, right? This is going to be a motivation to not suck. So it's actually a public adjuster license, a PA license, which I believe I can coincide with my home inspection business. Essentially, if I'm finding hail damage and things along those lines on roofs, siding, gutters, etc., when I'm inspecting a home, I can check my public adjuster software and things along those lines. Checking for recent hailstorms and whatnot, and potentially assist the homeowners if they're interested, of course, of putting an insurance claim on the house and righting the wrong of the hail and helping assist them, getting them new fill in the blank, whatever the insurance company will provide.
Wow. So that certainly sounds like it would help your other business quite a bit, and it's very synergistic. So,
I agree. It
very
could be a
exciting.
bit of a conflict of interest technically,
Yeah.
but I would be
Okay.
representing two different. No, I'll agree, but I'll be representing two different clients to that point. My
Sure.
client for home inspection would be people looking to buy that home, and my clients for public adjusting would be the people selling the home. So to me, it's not something I'd be searching out for. It's not something I'm going to be like, looking through a fine comb and magnifying glass, for every single house. Primarily, the goal of the public adjusting stuff will be to be separate of the home inspections. It's just if I can, kind of kill two birds with one stone. Hey, I see hail damage on the siding, gutters, and garage door and roof, etc. And I can assist you into potentially getting this repaired, and it's going to make this house more enticing for someone trying to buy it. Maybe a seller would be happy with that. You know, Not going to push it hard. If there are no problem, there are no. Okay, I made my money on this home inspection. I move on. So I will try my hardest to keep them separate, but if they can coincide, then hey, Jesus take the wheel.
Yeah. Everything has a conflict of interest. There's no way to get around it. The key is that you disclose the conflict of interest. You explain how there is a conflict of interest if it does exist in a particular situation. So that's really the only thing that matters. So, well, I think that is a very exciting endeavor to take on as well. I wish you luck as you continue to study and get ready to pass that. So, for my final question, if you could go back in time to a moment in your life when you needed some advice, what would the advice be, and at what point in your life would you go back to?
That's a good question. I've done a lot of dumb stuff. Um, back in time to give myself some advice.
Yeah, me too. Full of dumb stuff.
I'll go. I'll multi-layer this one. I think ultimately I wouldn't give myself advice because I think when you fail is when you really test who you are. Both on how you react to it, and of course what your next course of action would be. So I actually appreciate all the failure in my life and all the dumb stuff that I've done because now I'm my wise age of 32. I look back and I'm like, all those failures and all those mess ups by no means were a good thing, but at the same time they were probably the best thing that ever happened to me because it led me to where I am.
Yeah, and I think when you're young, that's not something that you really understand.
No.
You kind of look at failures differently when you're young. You look at failures when you have that type of wisdom. You look at failures as opportunities to get better, to grow. When you're young, failures are like end of the world, man. They can crush you. So I think that in and of itself would have been a lesson to
Mhm.
go back and say, hey, just keep moving forward. Nothing wrong
But I
with it.
will also answer the question, of course.
Thank you.
If I could go, no, I wanted just to start with that. I think me being dumb and messing up a million times in my life is a good thing. But I do want to
Mhm.
actually answer the question.
Yeah.
I'd probably go back to myself at 18, 19, 20 years old, young and dumb in the Marine Corps. I'll be one of the first ones to tell you I was young and dumb. Complained about a lot about the Marine Corps. I've thought about this many times. Like, how dumb were you? On social media, complaining and typing up a post. Not even spelling Marine Corps properly. Just being dumb. Just great knuckle dragger like I am. So I would probably look back myself and say, hey, these are times that you will look back on even a few years from now and think those were arguably some of the best years of my life, and they were. The time that I spent in the Marine Corps to me were invaluable. They taught me more than I would ever know, and I'll probably realize and reflect on more things that I've learned, as my life progresses. But I would probably just tell myself to, shut up, embrace the suck, and grind it out and try to enjoy all this. And then also don't let your Verizon cloud expire and you will lose all your pictures in Marine Corps. That's what happened. So I would give myself a couple of bit of advice like that, and I probably would have a lot more pictures in the Marine Corps. And yeah, now it's all pretty much a memory. I've got a broken
There's no
hard
way to
drive
get
as
it back.
well.
No way to get it back.
I looked into it and like the Verizon Cloud, if you stop paying the bill after 1 month, everything's gone.
They
So
just they just
it's all gone.
destroy it. Mm,
Yeah, and I'm dumb. I think like it happened like 8 years ago, whatever it was. It was like my my debit card had expired, and I ever never updated the debit card or something, and I just lost it
mm.
all. Just silly. So tons of pictures and videos and everything else in the Marine Corps are pretty much erased. Whatever I put on social media at that point. So those two things be my advice. Pay your Verizon Cloud bill, change your card or whatever, switch it over to your Apple stuff, and shut up and embrace the suck.
Yeah, and just take pictures in general. I'm not very good at taking pictures, so I don't have a lot of pictures from my time in the military. Unfortunately, I wish I did. I think there would be a lot of really cool stuff to be able to post and showcase. But also, yeah, going back into the to like 10 years ago posts that I saw of myself on Facebook, I'm like, what the heck was I thinking? Why did I write
Mhm.
that? Like,
Yep.
geez, like I see a younger version of myself all the time on Facebook. So I think that's a really cool thing to be able to look at those little blips in history. Like, wow, like mindset was just completely different 10 years ago. So, but those are really good nuggets, man. I really appreciate you sharing that. And again, I appreciate you coming on to talk about everything from before, during, after the military and where you are today. So Sammy, it's been a pleasure, man.
No, thank you very much for having me. I really appreciate this opportunity. I think this is great, and hopefully, something that I said somewhere along the lines I can help a veteran, someone active duty trying to maybe even get out.
Yeah.
I'm always approachable. I always tell people if you need help, let me know. I mean, I'm pretty Googleable at this point. If you Google Eddie's inspections, number comes up on our personal cell phone. If someone needs something, give me a call, send me a text, send me an email. I'll do what I can to help them, even if I don't know them, especially if they're, someone in the service or another veteran. I am busy, but I'll always try to make time to help someone in need. So,
Yeah, I'm going to echo that. You call Sammy, he's got your back. He's going to have a conversation with you. You don't have to worry about that. He's going to help you figure out how to navigate life, navigate the transition. Maybe you want to become a firefighter. Maybe you want to get into inspections. Who knows? Give Sammy a call for sure. So, all right. Well, I'm going to let you get back to your day, sir. I appreciate your time.
sounds good. Thank you very much. I appreciate it.
Thank you. Take care. As we conclude this episode of Amplify Veterans, I want to emphasize the importance of supporting our veterans in times of need. If you or someone you know is struggling, remember, help is always available. The Veterans Crisis Line provides confidential support 24/7. Reach out to them by dialing 988 and then select option 1. You can also go to veteranscrisisline.net for more information.